and welcome back to my channel. This week on the Great British Bake Off it was Cake Week, which means that I'm going to be making Le Gateau Vert. I've never made this before. It's likely that every week I'm never going to have made any of these things before, like last week. Never made a wagon wheel, but look at me now, wagon wheeling away. So the Le Gateau Vert is a pistachio based cake. And it's all natural colouring, so thankfully, you know, I've not had to sort of veganise too much of it, except there's a lot of eggs, so that means a lot of chickpea water, yay! So I'm going to get started now. You want to preheat your oven to 180 degrees, I remembered to say that this week, and then first of all I'm just going to prep the baking tray, the cake tin, by drawing a circle around it in pencil on some baking sheet and then putting that inside it, because that's apparently what you're supposed to do. Try not to get lead poisoning, so cutting off all the pencil. I'm also going to grease the inside of it with some dairy-free spread. Life hack, if you didn't already know, if you're going to be greasing a like a cake tin or a baking tray or anything, just use the little paper that comes on top of your butter, or your butter equivalent. You can just use that to spread. So this is the first time that I'm going to be using the pistachios in the recipe. So I got 4 200-gram bags of no saltio pistachio from Holland & Barrett. Don't have to get them from there, you can get them from anywhere. So I made the colossal error of getting them in the shell. So my nails are wrecked. That took ages to deshell them. Not only that, I did discover that you halve the weight when you deshell them. So each bag of 200 grams is actually 100 grams. I put aside 3 full bags of the pistachios for the marzipan, and then half of one should be 50 grams, I think. So I've got my 50 grams of pistachios right here for the sponge. Okay, so about 50 grams of pistachios, or about that much. About 75 grams of plain flour. And whisk. So it's a full can of chickpea water that I'm going to whisk. Unfortunately my whisk is missing a whisk, but it's going to be fine. It's going to take longer, but it'll be good. So you want to whisk it and gradually add in the sugar, and then until it forms like stiff peaks, like a meringue. You actually want to plug you want to plug the whisk in. Definitely that is the first step, plug the whisk in. That will be fine. So as you can see, the mixture's increased in size quite dramatically. So from just the water out of the can of chickpeas, added sugar, whisked up, you then get a huge bowl full of so you can use this as marshmallow. So like in the last video on the wagon wheels, I said, you know, if you make meringue mix, that's more or less marshmallow fluff, so that's what this is. So now I'm going to gently fold in the pistachio mix. If anyone knows why you're supposed to gently fold it in a Genoese sponge, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, please do let me know, because I have no idea why. So I completely misread the recipe, and I thought it said 125 grams of softened butter, which is why I have so much melted butter, but so it's actually 25. So I've just taken a bit, put it into one of these little measuring things, just eyeball 25 grams and just pour that on. And then we want the zest of 1 lemon. So I've just grated it with a cheese grater. Put that on. And then fold that in as well. So I think in addition to greasing the cake tin, you're also supposed to lightly flour it. I don't really know why that is. Again, if you know, please do tell me. So everything that I've researched about a Genoese sponge says that you need to be very gentle with it. So I'm going to very gently pour it in to the cake tin. Okay, so we have a cake ready to go in the oven. So for some reason I didn't realise that I'd got the knob like half turned between fan and not fan. So the cake has been sat in the oven and it's not been hot, so I think that's probably going to have a negative effect on the consistency of the cake. But so I've got the cake out of the oven. I decided that I was going to turn down the heat because when I checked on it, so when I went to check on it, the surface of it was like quite crispy. Not particularly cake-like, more like a meringue, which was worrying. And I did the prod test, so like, you know, when you put like I used a chopstick, you can use like a toothpick, whatever. It came out and it was really like it wasn't cooked. But now I've done a prod in a couple of different places and it does feel cake-like. I left it in the oven for roughly 40 minutes altogether. About 20 minutes on 180, and then, no, about 10 minutes on 180, and then 30 minutes on 150 on the fan. So I'm going to let this cool for around 10 minutes, then I'm going to try and get it out of the cake tin, and hopefully it'll be great. So I've left that to cool for around 10 minutes, and I'm going to, oh, that's hot. It's still hot, it's not cold. But I'm going to try and... It has risen quite well, and it's very spongy, it's quite sticky. I'm hoping that's a good thing. So I'm going to leave that to cool completely now, before I'm going to attempt, keyword attempt, to slice it into 3 equal layers. To make the marzipan, we need the 300 grams of pistachios from earlier. I'm actually not going to use more. I'm going to use like most of them, and then just see how I get on. Then we want to add 225 grams is on the recipe of icing sugar. So I've got a kilogram bag, so roughly a quarter of this bag. The next step with the marzipan is to pour that mixture into a mixing bowl. Then add, it says to add an egg, so I'm adding maybe 2 to 4 tablespoons of aquafaba. Start off with about 2 and then combine. Then we want to dust the worktop with some icing sugar and then pour the mixture out and knead it. And then I'm just going to set that aside while I make the buttercream. In order to make the creme au vert nice and green, we have to use spinach. We have to use spinach. Wow. We have to use spinach to make it green. So what we have to do then is to bring, it says 170 millilitres of water, so like, you can see how much I've got in there, it's not very much at all. So I'm just going to bring that to the boil. And I'm going to add the spinach, so it's 300 grams of spinach. I've got 200 gram bags of organic spinach, so and I'm just going to do 1.5 bags, let it wilt down, and then we'll strain the liquid through a muslin pot. So I've decided to just go with the bag of 200 and hope for the best, see what happens. So the next bit is to transfer it into the blender, blitz it up and then strain it through a muslin cloth. The next part is to strain the spinach puree through a muslin cloth. So I just got this from Amazon. I think it was about £6. If you just type in unbleached muslin cloth, that'll come up. So yeah, I'm just gonna cut it up and then strain it through. So I've had to quickly change my apron because I didn't want to stain my cream one. This is fine. So I've just covered the pan with a few layers of the muslin cloth, and I'm just going to put the mixture, the spinach mixture, on it. So after looking again at how to make the crème au vert, it is so long-winded, I'm not going to do it. Could do it, don't have time to do it, so I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to put everything in the blender. Thankfully I did save some of the pistachios from the marzipan because I completely forgot that I needed them in the crème au vert, because I'm a total pro. So I'm putting in a few pistachios, the ones that I'd saved. I'm going to blitz those first because gets that out of the way. Then I'm going to add about 150 grams of dairy-free spread. The recipe calls for 80 grams of caster sugar, so I'm just going to pour some sugar in. And we want to add quite a bit of the spinach colouring to make it nice and green. We've got the buttercream done. So the cake is now completely cold, and this is probably going to be the scariest bit. I've got to try and slice 3 equal layers. So I'm just going to keep that separate, and then I think it's going to be fine because I'm going to cover it in marzipan. I might just do 2 layers. So I've got 1 layer, 2 layers, and do the buttercream, cover it in marzipan, cover it in icing, and it will be fine. So now I have to try and put the cake together. So I'm going to put just a thin layer of the buttercream on the bottom cake. Okay, and now for the hard part, I'm trying to get this top on it. Okay, there we go, that was a success, wasn't it? Okay, so I'm just going to try and piece this cake together to try and make it still appear like a cake once I've covered it in the icing. Oh dear, this was not a success. Okay, so I think possibly what went wrong here was the fact that I didn't preheat the oven and then I maybe took it out too soon anyway. But it's still going to look like a cake. It's still going to taste like a cake. It's going to be fine. Now I just have to cover the top and sides with the crème au vert. Well, at least that's covering that up. Okay, so the cake's looking nice and green, covered in the crème au vert. Okay, next step, marzipan. Now I have to roll out the marzipan and cover the cake. I'm going to try and lift it and cover the cake. Final step, icing sugar. Okay. Oh, not that much. I'm just going to add a little bit of the spinach colouring, the green. Start with 2 tablespoons, see how I go. icing on and cover the whole cake. So the final step, ignore all this, I've just had it in the fridge to cool the fondant. So the final step is to add crushed pistachios to the outside. Make it look super pretty, because I've done a terrible job of trying to do that so far. Ta-da! Okay, so I finished my Gateau Vert, just decorated the edges with some pistachios because there weren't enough pistachios in there already. But it's very green. All things considered, with the amount of things that went wrong, I'm actually quite happy with that. I think it looks great.